Welcome to the Successful Life Podcast. I'm your host, Corey Berrier, and I'm here with my man, Nick Jones. What's up, brother?
What up, Corey?
Not much, my man. So Nick's been one of my buddies for, I don't know, going on close to 25 years. And one would have thought we would have done this much quicker than now, but we talk all the time, and it just never really dawned on me. I don't know why. Honestly, I didn't think about having you on previously, but I think the timing is everything, as in most things in life. And so, Nick, I don't want to, I'll let you kind of give everybody an overview of who you are, what you do, talk about CellTech, obviously, and all those good things. By the way, Nick's company is where I get all my peptides from. So when he mentions CellTech, that's where they come from. Go ahead, brother.
So I don't want it to be a CellTech commercial, obviously. So, cliff notes of who I am and how we got here. I mean, what I do for a living now, four major businesses. My passion is the med spas, but I have a peptide importation company. I'm part owner of a nutraceutical manufacturing company with another friend of mine. My wife and I always have a limousine company. I've been an entrepreneur for about, I guess, of the 25 years you've known me, I guess about 18 of those, or more, 18 or 20 of those, because I have had some employer jobs in that 25-year time period. So, Cliff Notes, born right here in Atlanta, Georgia. My mom and dad had me in high school, which back then was very taboo. I was raised between two sets of grandparents. Not to be the victim, I had two of the best sets of grandparents that you could ask for. But my mom's parents were very old, and that's who I lived with first. And I really had no discipline, got in a lot of trouble. Moved in with my dad's dad, who was the colonel, which gave me the discipline to at least graduate high school and get off to college, which I eventually graduated as well. But in my college years, when I stopped playing football and bodybuilding, my drug use and alcohol use really took off, and it was really easy to sell drugs and make money in college. So I was either at the right place at the right time, or the wrong place at the wrong time, or the wrong place at the right time, however you want to word it. In those scenarios where escalated up the drug dealing food chain, so to speak. And that, coupled with the escalation of my addiction, I quit the family business, which was industrial chemicals, which broke my granddad's heart. And there were a lot of reasons that I did that. I certainly wasn't passionate about it. Don't regret it now, but regretted the way I did it, and regretted it for a long time. And then I just lived the drug dealing life for about 15 years. And it wasn't the several trips to jails and prisons that got me out of that life. It was the fact that my cocaine addiction had progressed to the point that I had tried everything to do to limit use, California recovery, blah, 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 and I couldn't stop. So I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get out of the drug game unless I quit using cocaine, and I wasn't going to be able to quit using cocaine unless I got out of the drug game. So it was a package deal, and I voluntarily checked myself into a rehab in 1999. Stayed there for almost a year. Stayed there for inpatient 7 months, outpatient for the next 5, and had a year sober, basically just on 527 meetings in a year, getting those sheets signed. And ironically enough, at the end of that first year, I really didn't know the first thing about what I understand true recovery to be now. So the thought crossed my mind with a big bonus check that I could go out and party on Friday, and I'd make it back to work by Tuesday of that holiday weekend. And we all know how that story ends. I didn't make it back to work. But then I thought I was fucked, truly. Because I thought I had tried everything, and I just resigned myself to the fact, well, okay, I'm going to be a drunk and a junkie until they put me in the grave. I would go pick up white chips, the surrender chip. I'd go pick up a white chip and go home and drink. Pick up a white chip and go home and drink.
Now, that was in that 12-step recovery program. That was, yeah. Was that more along the drug recovery program, or is that more of an alcohol program?
Great question. So, but now there's an A for everything. But back then there were really just 3 or 4. It was Alcoholics Anonymous, the original that all the others are variations of. And there was Narcotics Anonymous, which in my humble opinion was a simplified version of the AA big book, the NA, and then there was CA, and cocaine certainly was my drug of choice. And CA used the AA big book. And then there was, of course, the Al-Anon for the people around, the people that lives that we destroy. So it's a long story, but I went to this meeting. I'd gone my home group. I picked up so many white chips that not only did they stop clapping, that they asked me, the house man at St. Jude's actually called and said, "Hey man, we're out of white chips. If you're coming tonight, could you bring a handful back?" And so I'd driven out to this meeting way out, this Friday night CA meeting, so that I could get a little applause and some sympathy for picking up another white chip. And everybody in the meeting was talking about the book. And so I was curious enough to go back the next week. And the next week, this guy walked up to me after the meeting, said, "What's your name?" I said, "My name's Nick." And he says, "I've been looking for you." And I'm like, "Shit, do I owe this guy money? Like, where did I know this guy from?" And he's like, my name's Dante, and you need to bring your big book and be at my house next Monday night." And I gave him every excuse in the world. "Well, I don't drive now. You live way out." And he's like, "Take the MARTA out and we'll pick you up." But I do remember distinctly sitting down with him and talking to him for a little bit before we started going through the book. And I remember like yesterday, I absolutely did not believe that those 164 pages in the AA big book would work for me. However, I did absolutely believe that he was like me and they had worked for him. And that was enough for me to come back the next week. And then also, starting from that first blank page, all the treatment centers and meetings that I've been to, and even book studies where someone talks about a step and you get 15 different opinions of what they think that step means to them. The information was never being presented to me in such a detailed manner of literally going by the book word by word, not step by step, but word by word. And he was pretty clear about, he said, "Hey, all I've got to tell you is what's in this book. I'm not going to tell you about your romances or your finances or what you should do in anything in your life. If you ask me a question, I'm going to give you the answer that comes out of the book. And if the answer ain't in the book, then I ain't got an answer for you." And it turned out, of course, the solution to all my problems was God. And so that was the tools that led me to the relationship with God, which I say a lot. I used to feel for a long time I was cursed with alcoholism and addiction, but really it's been my biggest blessing. I wouldn't have the life that I have now. I wouldn't have the relationship with my wife, my friends like you, and just I guess the perspective. Chuck C calls it a new pair of glasses. The pair of glasses that I view the world with, I really like these pair of glasses. And there's a lot of people that go through life. I have a best friend he's not one of us. You know what I'm saying? And he can go out and party hard on a vacation or a special occasion and then not think about it or it cross his mind until next year on his birthday. You know what I'm saying?
Mind blowing.
Well, it is mind blowing. What blew my mind the most for me is I didn't have any genetic alcoholics or addicts on my father's side. My mom was an alcoholic and an addict, a junkie, straight junkie. But my grandfather that raised me, he would come home and have a drink of bourbon every single night. And if dinner was running late, grandma would make him a second one. And I never saw him finish the second drink ever. You know, it just sat there and turned into ice water. And we go out to ball games or stuff, he'd have a beer. And after yard work, he'd have a Bloody Mary. And like the book talks about the difference between a moderate drinker and a heavy drinker, and then crossing the line, becoming a real alcoholic. And once I had crossed that line, there was no going back. And again, I learned in the doctor's opinion about the allergy and the obsession, the why I was different than my granddad, why I was different than my best friends. Like their body doesn't react to alcohol like my body does. And that made perfect sense to me. Now it made sense that I had this allergy that was not perceived by my mind. And if it was just the allergy, then it like, when you eat strawberries and your throat swells up, your body tells your brain, don't eat strawberries, you know what I'm saying? Or almonds or whatever it is. But with alcohol, when you drink alcohol and your body's craving more alcohol, your body never tells your brain, "Hey man, don't drink more alcohol." You're not aware of the allergic reaction. So, but if it was just as simple as the allergy, then Nancy Reagan's just say no would work, right? It would just don't drink and go to meetings would be great. Right. You know what I'm saying? That will work for the non-alcoholic. There are people that come into the program that are not real alcoholic, says the only requirement for membership is desire to stop drinking. There's lots of people that want to stop drinking that just had some mild consequences or some health issues, and they were able to just stop on self-knowledge or self-will or going to a bunch of meetings that they deemed as therapy. But the other part of that disease is the mental obsession, where even when I've gone a period of time without drinking, I'm thinking, go out and fucking drink.
Right.
So,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? And so what a miserable way to live, to be white knuckling it, you know what I'm saying, all the time. And because I'll spell you my recovery story. I distinctly remember the first time that I was under the influence. I stole a joint out of my mom's drawer when she was babysitting me for the weekend, and the neighbors up the street, when they smoked, they drank beer. So we stole some of these little Miller ponies out of the refrigerator and went into the woods, and we drank the beer and we smoked the joint. And that was a spiritual experience for me, because all of a sudden I felt like I fit in. I always felt like I was different. I always felt like I was less than. I always feel like because my parents were around, I weren't like other people, and I didn't fit in with the jocks as an athlete. And I didn't fit in with the creative band members or the techie nerd guys. Like, I just didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. Like, I was terminally unique. And that lubricant made me the social butterfly, you know what I'm saying, for years. And it worked. The book says we drink because we like the effect. Well, that's why I drank, because I liked the effect, until I had crossed the line. We talked about in Becoming a Real Alcoholic, where, you know, once you cross the line, there's no going back. The great analogy that I use is, you can take a cucumber and dump it in vinegar 1,000 times, but once that cucumber is a pickle, it will never, ever be a cucumber again. So that's something that they say the first step's the only one you have to practice perfectly. That's another topic. Even at 25 years sober, I do not believe the lie that I could successfully go out and have a drink.
Right.
And I don't know what the consequences would be that day, but I know that there would be some consequences. It's not a matter of ifs, it's just a matter of when. My guess is they'd be pretty bad.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the difference in the non-alcohol, or the guy that has a problem drinking that can quit on whatever, whether it's knowledge or whether it's self-will or both, and then practicing the principles in all our affairs and following what the 12 steps are and why they're laid out. Because without the 12 steps, you don't have for me anyway, I don't have a design for living, because left up to me, I'm going to fuck that up.
Me too. I tell people all the time, if I play God, if I think that I can drive the bus still, I'll still crash the bus. I'll crash it totally sober. The only thing that the book talks about more than working with others, which I think is mentioned 120 times, is the fact that if you're a real alcoholic, what is absolutely necessary is a psychic change, a spiritual experience, a spiritual awakening, a transformation, a change of thinking. And that can only come from God. Now, the book says we have no monopoly on recovery. I don't want this to be a big book, a whole podcast, but there are other ways that people have got sober, both heavy drinkers, and there are other ways that alcoholics have got sober. There are alcoholics that in other situations have had a burning bush experience, and God relieves that alcoholism. In fact, Bill Wilson, one of AA's founders, his really only original idea was one alcoholic working with another, right? Okay. He did that for 6 months and nobody got sober, but he stayed sober, and he had never been able to stay sober for 6 months. So one thing that's really only recently pointed out to me, and anything I learn something new as long as I've been around for 5 years, is when the book says we have no monopoly, well, we don't have a monopoly, but what we do have is the only thing that's transferable. All those other ways that people have gotten sober are not transferable from one person to another. The way that I got sober can not only can be transferred, but part of the process is for me to transfer it. I've got a dear friend who I will let remain nameless that moved from Charlotte to Miami, and he's put together some multiple years at a time, but he can't find long-term permanent. He's not permanently recovered like the book promises I will be, because he refuses to work with others. And I try to tell him out, like, man, I don't know who your sponsor is, but I don't even use that book, but I don't know who's walking you through the book. But when you get to chapter 7, your instructions are really clear. And certainly if you get to 12, you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And if you're not doing that, then chances are that you're not going to be able to stay sober. And that's been the experience that I've seen, and that was just with him, with everybody. So catching back up to the life story, once I got sober this time, which March 10th, 2001, it wasn't like I got sober and all of a sudden the rest of my life is rainbows and butterflies. I felt guilty at first that my life got so good so fast that I felt like I was undeserving.
Hang on, what year did you just say you did? 2001?
March 10th, 2001 is my clean day. Yeah.
Yeah, so I must have met you about, I think
With
you
about
were,
a year
yeah,
and some change sober.
right. And life was
Yep.
getting pretty good at that point. And so,
Well,
yeah,
already like I was the leader of one of the fastest growing cell phone companies in the country, and I was making stupid money, and I was traveling throughout the Southeast and getting really good, but doing something I love. Cell phones were fun back then. We make a lot of money in it. That's how I met you. One of the things that alcoholics have in common, a very common trait, is the gift of gab and being able to sell them, because they're so used to selling themselves and manipulating people. And although I don't think good professional sales is manipulation at all, but that's another story. But anyway, they have the traits, the self-will, the drive, the ambition, the grandiose ego, all the positive and the negative traits that come with, that most people associate with a positive salesperson. So yeah, so we got into wireless. Wireless changed. One of the first business lessons I had to learn, when I had my own wireless company and wireless changed, and the carriers were changing, and I'll spare you the AT&T singular story, but the market was changing. It was becoming commoditized, and the money was going to become in the equipment, not in the rate plans. And I had a bunch of employees that were high school educated that were making $50,000-$60,000 a year 20 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Which was pretty goddamn good money.
yeah.
And so I literally wiped out my life savings trying to save a sinking ship. The market had changed. It was unsalvageable. It wasn't going to ever be like it was. And it was a hard lesson to learn. I learned it though. And I've had many businesses that have been successful. I've had several that failed. But now if one's losing me money and I don't know exactly why or see the light at the end of the tunnel, I'll pull the plug on that baby. And I certainly won't start pouring good money after bad. So anyway, I was in the wireless business. Money went out of wireless. I worked for Sandler Sales, which is, in my humble opinion, the best sales methodology in the world. I was the number one salesperson with every single company I ever worked for since the time I was 19. It's a genetic gift. My father was the same way. My grandfather was the same way. I think part of it's nature, part of it's nurture. I think a little of both. But I thought I knew everything about sales because I taught everybody else how to do it. Then I went to Sandler, and there was all this stuff that I'd never heard of that was really cool, and it made selling fun again. So I was part of the Sandler Sales Institute in Charlotte, and I landed the biggest account at the time with Sandler, which was Coca-Cola North America, through my contacts in Atlanta. And then somebody else out of corporate in Baltimore landed IBM Lenovo globally. And so they literally recruited me out of my own franchise to head up that program globally because no one else had ever managed an account that size. And that was a really cool gig, traveling the world as a C-level executive coach and sales trainer. I was gone for months at a time, and I had taken legal custody of my little brother. My mom, who was an addict, had a child 24 years younger than me. And she was a junkie, so we rescued him out of a crack house. But I raised him, but I was gone a lot. And then that market changed when the economy hit and tanked, and I was a subcontractor, and they started laying off subcontractors first. So had a chance to come back to Atlanta, which for a period of my life I would have said, which in retrospect was a curse. But anyway, I had a chance to come back to Atlanta and open up a franchise called Online Trading Academy. And these people found me and gave me a 1/3 ownership of a franchise. It's a brick and mortar school that teaches people how to trade stocks. I didn't know the first thing about stocks. They said, you don't have to, you're not teaching the class. So I went and taught the class and learned the product and hired and trained some really good salespeople. Made a lot of really good money. And again, it was another business where I was truly helping people. I wasn't selling anything that was a scam. You know what I'm saying? This wasn't some fly by night. We were brick and mortar schools. We Goldman Sachs trainers off Wall Street that came to teach the class. Then we're treating a legitimate skill, changing people's financial lives. I've been in the gym business, changing health lives, and cell phones are fun. And there's a kind of even as a C-level executive coach at Sandler, most of the executives that I did one-on-one coaching with, the problems that I helped them with were not problems that they had from 9 to 5. They were problems that I had from 5 to 9. So the joke back then used to be, I was the most overpaid, undereducated therapist in the world, because that's really what I was, as their
Right.
coach. And the majority of what I coached them wasn't Sandler, although some of it was. And the majority of it was the spiritual principles that I learned to help change my life. And so I came back to Atlanta. Out of 32 franchises, by number 2, we were the number 1 franchise in the world. And I bought into Boston, and things were going really good until by this time in my life, I'd skipped. I'd already been to prison twice. The first time for eluding, running from the police. I was known for that. And I was on probation in 3 counties for doing that, because I always had drugs on me and I was always going to run and get away. And eventually, just the running and getting away, they said, especially this cop crashed a car chasing me one time, and that was pretty serious. And I endangered people's lives. I'm not romanticizing nor minimizing it. So the first time I went to prison just for driving violations, habitual violator from eluding, right? The second time was possession with intent that I pled down from distribution. And I'd had a big manufacturing case of ecstasy that they took to the grand jury 3 times. They never could indict me. It was just a bunch of people writing statements on me. So I'd already been to prison twice before I got sober. And the last time, because I was out of the life, I had a really weak case that I could have beat, but I'd missed a court date while I was in treatment. So to fight the case, I was going to have to sit in court. They weren't going to give me another bond. And I had to sit there for 6 or 8 months or a year. I knew I had this other job opportunity. So I took a 20-year probation sentence and a $250,000 fine, because I was out of the life. It wasn't going to be anything. I'm not going to violate probation. I don't drink. I don't drug unless they can violate me for a speeding ticket, which I still get. And I won't say in hindsight it's 2020, but when I moved back to Georgia and the district attorney found out that I lived here, I was exhibiting some behavior that allowed them to violate that probation. And with 10 years sober, I had to go back for 6 years sober. And that wasn't any fun. Being in a maximum security prison as a white boy, not in a gang that has money, is not exactly the dream scenario, so to speak. Not rainbows and butterflies, like I said. But I was angry at God for a couple of years. I've been sober 10 years. I've helped all these people. How can you do this to me? And I've never really played the victim, but I was angry. I don't think God lost his sleep over it. But how I stayed sober and got through that was, 2 things. I was finding people in prison to help get sober. You know what I'm saying? That was, I think even you and I had some conversations pretty in depth back then, before you started your journey or were just starting it. And then also was teaching people how to trade stocks from their contraband cell phones, and it was working. And so I was really popular in prison. Popularity can't always be a good thing. But anyway, came back and had lost everything. This time when I got out, I was living in my sister's basement, and I started a little supplement company with you that made a little bit of money for me to buy a car, but it never really took off. And it's hard to do internet when you're competing with the big boys.
And you don't know anything. And you don't know anything about the internet.
Well, it's not
2 of us.
Even today, the credit card processing restrictions on supplements are just insane. Going through, you got to find a credit card processor that's going to let you do whatever, because most of them, the FDA issues a warning on one product, and if you don't have that product off your webpage, they're going to stop your credit card process.
Yeah.
But my passion was always to start what was called at the time a testosterone clinic, which kind of evolved into a medical weight loss and anti-aging clinic, which has now evolved into a hormone replacement overall wellness clinic using a lot of peptides. And that's my passion. It isn't my primary source of income. I don't trade much. I still invest from what the tools I learned from trading. I did trade a lot when I got home. In fact, the money I got to start my first med spa was I had traded an account. I traded my account and I traded some other people's account that they gave me spiffs on for growing their account. And I did, my mom is deceased. I did her ex-boyfriend for free, and it grew the hell out of his accounts. And his kids would always get really upset that I had access to his account, but I never moved a dime or took a dime. He never paid me a dime. They could have gone at any time. Like I was making him a bunch of money and none of the money ever moved out of the account. And so how upset could they be? So anyway, through my contacts, I started this little nutraceutical manufacturing company up and coming. And then when the previous administration, the FDA made it illegal to manufacture peptides in the United States. The FDA can't make a law, they can only make a rule. And you can't get arrested for doing it, but they can come and confiscate all your stuff and sue you, which they will do. I started a peptide importation company, and it took off real fast. And then the tariff war about put me out of business. I was having to buy at retail and sell at wholesale, which is ass backwards, just so I wouldn't lose the customer base. And I took a big L, but I knew that was temporary. That was one of those things where I knew that it was temporary, so I was going to take the L to keep the business going. It's just part of being an entrepreneur. And you would know this, Corey. Most people think, well, I want to be self-employed and work for myself and do what I want to do. And yeah, I have that life now. But there were many years where I worked 24/7, 365. There are no off days. Still to this day in my businesses, if I have enough of the key people out, I'm the one that has to do that job. And it's usually more than one and more than one business that comes away. Hell, this winter I had 5 people out of 4 employees in 3 different businesses, and I was working 70 hours a week for like 3 months. And that's rare. I'm not complaining. But most people I saw this funny thing on the internet this morning. I wish I could quote it, but the difference between guts and balls, right? The analogy was a guy comes home and he's been out with the boys all night, and he comes home and his wife's got the broom like she's going to beat him with it. And he says, "Hey, honey, what you doing? Cleaning this lake?" And those are guts, right? And then balls is the same guy comes home, but now he's smelling like perfume and got girls' makeup on his shirt. and she said, and she's got the broom in her hand, and he says, "Lube up, baby, you're next." That's balls. But anyway, catching you up to modern day, that's the very Cliff Notes version of a very, I've lived more than, I use definitely more than a cat's 9 lives. I like to say I'm on definitely probably my 3rd cat by now. But for the life that I used to lead, and then the life I had, and then I had to go back to prison, and the life I have now, they're like 3 different lifetimes. And I've got a bunch of crazy stories from running from the cops and getting away from the DEA and the Coast Guard in Miami, and overdosing. And I overdosed one time. It passed out at 2 a.m. in my girlfriend's car. I've been up for 3 or 4 days drinking, and the cocaine wore off. I think I'd taken some GHB, and I passed out in her car, backing into her apartment complex at 2 a.m. And they found me at 5 p.m. the next afternoon in 97-degree heat with the windows up. There's no reason that I should have lived through that. And the second that I came to, I had somebody bring me a pint and some cocaine to intensive care. When I'm in intensive care, I'm not even in a room. There's a curtain between me and the nurse. And that's the level that my addiction had planted. So I've got a really good life. Waited really late in life, although I had some really quality relationships in sobriety, some long-term really quality relationships. Never felt like I'd met my soulmate. But got married a couple of years ago, and have never, ever been happier and that was gone beyond my wildest dreams. Business comes and goes. I've still had some business fails. I opened up a clinic in a bad area and didn't have the right staff in there, and I had to shut it down about a year ago. That one lost me about $250,000. But I opened it for the right reasons and the wrong reasons. The only reason I opened that clinic, and family, if you're listening, you already know this, so don't get your feelings hurt. The only reason I opened that clinic is because my sister hated her job, and I wanted her to have a better job. And I wanted something for my sister and my brother to have as their own. I was doing it for them. but I always look, I never playing the victim in any, and it's a part of what I've learned literally in the A Big Book. Any single problem that I have in life with a person, in any relationship, in business, with a spouse, with a friend, with an employee, with a business partner, I can only look at the part that I play in it, right? And it does two things. It stops me from being a victim because I'm looking on the part that's about me, not what they did. And also, it's so liberating because it's the only thing that I can work on. And it's the part I can only work at the part I played on it. What could I have done different? What could I have done better? What's the lesson for me? I coach and mentor a lot of young people, both in and out of recovery programs. And one of the first things I teach them is find your passion, because in this country, if you love doing something, it's not work. So it's not tumultuous on your daily mindset. And if you love something, you'll do it enough to get good at it, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, right? And in this country, once you're good at something, someone will pay you top dollar to do it. It doesn't matter if it's cutting grass. It could be painting houses. It could be the most menial labor task. And if you're really good at it, you can become a millionaire in this country doing it. And then the other thing that I like teaching them is how to just look at your own personal responsibility for any of the situations that you're in. And it stops you from ever being a victim. I've never, ever met anybody with the victim mentality that's successful. I have excommunicated people out of my life, the girls that I've dated, because they had the victim mentality and the poor me. And you manifest that stuff. If you believe that the world's out to get you and everything's bad's going to happen, that's what's going to happen. You literally, it sounds so overly simplistic, but you really get back in life exactly what you put out. And if you put out hope and love and fear and charity and money, all right, that's what you get back. When I coach people in finances, first book I tell them to read is Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, written in the 1920s. 100 years later, it's still on the bestseller list, and you can find it in every airport. Probably the only book like that besides the Bible, right? But one of my second favorites is much less known, called The Richest Man in Babylon. And it talked about all these, it teaches lessons about business and money in parables, just like the Bible. And one of the ones that stuck with me is, it says, hold money, all your money, very loosely in your hand and shake it around everywhere you go, so money spills out everywhere you go. Because if you hold on to it, your fist is closed and no more money can come in. And I know for a fact that, like, I'm the over generous tipper. And depend on the scenario, part of it is still ego. I'm human. I want to tip you good at Twin Peaks because I want to be able to host my fight parties here, and you book me over the person that wants to watch the football game, right?
And it works.
And it does work. Yeah, of course, people take care of the people that take care of them.
Right.
I'm breaking them off.
Yeah.
And they're making more money as a result of doing business with me than they are somebody else. Of course, they want to do business with me, but it's not because they love Nick and Nick's just some super nice, altruistic guy. They're going to make more money. They're selfish. Most of the time, like, I over tip at all the restaurants, Uber drivers, Uber Eats, the valet, the concierge at the hotel. I always over tip them because you get back, even when I didn't have the kind of money that I have now. And I always give the disclaimer, just for the audience sake, I'm not rich. I'm well off. I've been rich before, and everybody's definition of that is, right now I'm just talking about financially. I am more rich and wealthy in all the more important things. The quality of friendships, the quality of my relationship with my wife, the way that I'm able to elevate employees, which I've always loved doing, just the joy that I have. My health, I've been through a couple of heart surgeries. We'll skip through those. And my wife and I used to argue this debate on whether I was rich or not. And the litmus test at the time was, which we joke about, she says, "You're rich." And I'm like, "I'm not rich." And she says, "You've got multiple homes and multiple sports cars, and you can vacation and you fly first class." And I said, "Well, two things. One, my friends that are really wealthy, they fly private, number one. Right? Number two, if I was really rich, I wouldn't have had to finance that Lambo. I would have just paid cash for it, which isn't really true because smart people use money with other money, but she got the point. But anyway, financial blessings, I know that they come from me because I really do. Anybody that's ever worked for me, even more now so than when you worked for me before we worked with me, it's very rewarding to help other people elevate their lives. But I guarantee you, every one of my employees now knows that their advancement in life is more important than my financial gain. And that I've had businesses where I didn't even write myself a check and gave them a raise. Or more importantly, that I've paid for their continuing education, knowing that once they completed it, I would lose them, that they would go on somewhere else to make more money doing whatever their passion was.
Right.
I had an office manager that started as a $15 an hour phlebotomist, right? And within 3 years was $100,000 a year office manager. And she earned that. She worked her way up to that position. It wasn't just a gift, but helping people's lives. We spend more time with our coworkers, however you want to work them. I don't even use the word employees, right? We spend more waking hours with the people that we work with in our family. You know what I'm saying? Unless you're retired, which I'll never do that. I will get to a position where I work when I want to. I'm certainly not there yet. My two grandfathers that raised me, the one I talk about all the time, the Colonel, worked his ass off, retired at 65, was dead at 72, right? My other grandfather, right, who never retired, who worked as a consultant of the environmental firm that he worked for when he felt like it, stayed mentally sharp as a tack and lived to be 96 years old. You know what I'm saying? So an object at rest stays at rest, right? Yeah. And an object in motion stays in motion. So basic laws of physics control everything. It's by design. That's how come I know there's a God. Everything fits a mathematical formula, right? So I'll always want to have something to do when I get up other than play golf, or, you know what I'm saying? Or just not have an agenda. That would kill me. That would.
Yeah. Literally.
No, literally.
Right. Literally.
Yeah, not figuratively. It would literally kill me.
Yeah.
You know, when I found out I tore my mitral valve lifting heavy in the gym, and it was a very serious tear, and I was in really bad shape. And I was on doctor's ordered bed rest while I waited on a waiting list for this one surgeon that knew how to go in robotically and sew that valve back up. And I was convinced that he could do it and it would do a good job, and that was the best solution. But there was no rushing his schedule. You know what I'm saying? And I would call every other week and say, "Hey man, can you move me up?" Because I did not stay in. I was supposed to sleep on the ground floor so I didn't walk upstairs to the bedroom. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't supposed to go anywhere, much less drive anywhere. And I would go into work every day, and I would work until I would start to feel like I was going to lose my vision because I wasn't getting enough blood to my head. I started to get blurry-eyed, and I'm like, I better drive home now. You know what I'm saying? So I just don't sit down well. Everybody read me an asshole, and I'm just not wired that way. I have to be active. I've gotten better with work-life balance as I've gotten old. I mean, I had to bring this pad home because I don't even have a computer in my house because I would use it.
Right, of course.
You know what I'm saying? It was there, and I'm sitting around watching some chick flick that my wife wants to work on at Netflix. So we watch a lot of premium movies, but we don't just watch TV per se very often. It's on, but we're doing other shit, and I would be working.
Right.
And that was growth. She would argue, she's not here now, but she would argue that fact because she never knew what I was like before.
Right.
Right before you met me, right? When I first got in wireless, I worked 6 days a week at a cell phone store, right? Monday through Saturday. I worked Monday through Friday at a brick and mortar store, their biggest brick and mortar store that had the highest traffic. And on Saturday, they put me in the center of the kiosk at the mall, where I blew everybody's doors off, right? And then when we first landed the Costco account where we sold the AT&T phones inside of Costco, I would sell phones all day in Costco, and I would lay on my sofa on Sunday and activate all of those phones. So really, I worked 7 days a week.
Yeah,
I'll be laying on my phone with a stack of fucking, and I tell people, because back then it was different. Hey, take this thing home, plug it in, charge it up in the morning, turn it off, turn it back on, and it'll work.
Yeah.
So I had a whole day, and I would go through so many activations that the activation people would say, "Hey, I've got to take a break, or I'm off. I'm off work. I'm gonna have to transfer you to somebody else." And I just lay there reading them IMEI serial numbers and activating phones. But I'd be so tired, man, that I couldn't even hold my eyes open to watch NFL football on Sundays. And I'm a huge NFL football fan, and I would just be exhausted. But I felt like I was so far behind in life because I had that 15-year gap of being a drug dealer in my resume that I felt like I had to play catch up. And really, I did. You know what I'm saying? I did. But again, I probably should have given this disclaimer before then. Every single one of my blessings have come from God. There is not one single original idea that Nick Jones invented, right? Every single thing that I know how to do and I've made money on, somebody else taught me how to do. I've never invented an app. I didn't invent a computer program, some kind of software. I didn't invent the coolest new widget or hair tonic formula or thick pill. So, although I did try to invent one of those. And so I'm so grateful because I do think it's a combination of the guy who walked me through the big book says all the time, he just says two things. You can call him bitching about how horrible life is, or you can tell him how great life is. And he'll say, well, keep doing what you're doing and you'll keep getting what you get. You know what I'm saying?
Either way.
Either way. You know what I'm saying? And so it is God, but I'm a big believer. And again, you get back what you put out. And I truly do try to help people. I do spend a lot of time not just helping other people get sober, because that's one of the things that keeps me sober, but I do and we're part of this Hope Through Soap downtown, where we bathe the homeless the third Saturday of every month, which is very humbling. And I'm friends with the guy that started it, and I could go down there and hand out the clothes or the bottled water or the food, which is the easy fun stuff. But boy, I have the most humbling job. I'm the guy that cleans the shower after every homeless person gets in that shower. And it's a trailer with a bunch of showers that aren't well ventilated. These people haven't bathed for at least a week and sometimes longer. And they're getting a new set of clothes, new condiments, fresh, brand new towels, washcloths, and they get 10 minutes in that shower, which is a pretty goddamn long shower. Right?
Yeah.
They get 10 minutes in that shower. And sometimes you have to drag them out. Right? But let me tell you, going in that shower after every person, it does not smell good. And you have to completely clean the whole thing before the next person can get in it. And again, I'm not complaining. And most of those people, the big misconception, the vast majority have a mental or illness or drug addiction or both.
Yeah.
But there's 49% that are temporarily homeless, that life dealt them some bad cards, and they're going to rebound and they're going to be back. But right now, they don't have a parent or an uncle or a friend that they can call, and they'll let them sleep on their sofa or give them a little money to eat. You know what I'm saying? So my point is that I always stay humble and not only acknowledge, but tell everybody. When I first got home from prison this last time, and I had a plan, right? And this sounds insane, but I really thought when I came home that within 90 days, I would have the life where I made $1.7 million the year before I went to prison. I thought I'd have that life back in 3 months. And that just wasn't the case. The world had changed, and I was a pariah in financials because everybody knew I just got home from prison. But I wouldn't have anybody in my life that told me I couldn't do something. I had two good friends, one, ironically enough, from the AA program, and one female friend that was a police officer at the time. She's a lawyer now. And she would tell me, she says, man, you're a 9-time convicted felon with some pretty horrific charges. And we're probably just going to have to work at Home Depot or get you a job, start your little landscaping business. And I said, I'm going to have my own clinic. And if you tell me that there's anything that I can't do, again, I'm not going to be able to talk to you anymore. And I had to tell my buddy the same thing. It's like, the world's changed, man. You can't expect to ever make that kind of money. And it wasn't even about the money, because you just can't expect to have that kind of life again. I just refuse to believe that. And life got so good so fast, because again, it took me, I think, from the time I got home, I went to work at a clinic right away. Like the week after I got out of house arrest, I was working at a clinic. And I told him, he wasn't hardly paying me shit. He wasn't paying me shit, dude. And I said, the only reason I'm taking this job is because a year from now, I want to have my own clinic. And it took me about a year and a half. But a year and a half later, I had my own clinic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And again, it's a God thing. My clinic, that clinic had been open for 5 years before I started work there. Right? And my clinic outperforms that clinic by leaps and bounds now. By leaps and bounds. It's not even close. But again, it wasn't anything genius on my part. It wasn't some great leadership skills. And again, I try to help people, and I do have some experiences, the difference between being a boss and being a leader. And, but the blessings all come from God, and my experience has been, they come from, as you just said, when you're practicing spiritual principles in all of your affairs, then life is pretty good. It doesn't mean that bad shit doesn't happen to good people. It does, right? Both in victims, you can get robbed, and God, I live close to downtown Atlanta. It's turning into Detroit and Chicago. It's the Wild West out there. Somebody will come up and try to carjack you at the gas station. So it's not that bad things don't happen to good people, but as a general rule, you get back what you put out. And I feel like God protects me and watches over me. I know he did before I even sought him, with all the lives that I used up. God was with me then. What makes me think that he's not going to be with me now? Right. And that has been my experience. And I can't stress enough, people don't understand it. Young people, they don't buy it. It sounds hokey or gimmicky, but I tell, a lot of people think we'll take giving the money thing again. Most people think, well, I'm going to get rich, and once I get rich, I'll be able to help a lot of people. That's not how it works. You're going to get rich by helping other people. You give away, and I don't care whether you're religious and use the tithing as an example of tithing your 10%, whether it means you're eating ramen noodles instead of going to Chipotle for dinner, TJ Applebee's, these real exclusive restaurants. But you get back tenfold. Again, to me, at this stage, it's not like recent. For the entire length of my sobriety, my most valuable asset is not money, it's time.
Right.
Time is the only single thing that I can't make more of. I don't even know how much I have. Right?
Yeah.
So if I can't make more of it, and I don't even know how much I have of it, that makes it pretty damn valuable, because life is short, and it could be a heart attack or getting run over by a bus, right? It could end tomorrow.
That's right.
Just like that, the blink of an eye. So giving of time, writing the check to donate, it's the easy part. I'm not even going to notice that. You know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah, you want some money? Here, I'm a good person. Here, see my check. Here, let me go volunteer with the homeless and put it on my social media. Look at me with the bum that stinks.
Right.
I'm hugging him. All right. You will never, ever see any of that on my social media. Very rarely will you even see material stuff unless it's pertaining to something. I caught hell, true story, because where I'm sitting. It snowed in my backyard, and I've got a really nice backyard. It's almost like I live in a tree house, right? And it's really pretty. And I posted a video of just how pretty the snow was. I wasn't trying to show my house, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't like, oh, look at me, look at this. I was just showing how pretty the snow was outside, and you can see that, yeah, we've got a property, and there's a pool and there's a jacuzzi. And man, I had some person that hasn't been able to stay sober, right? Just glide into my Facebook and say, oh, you're just a braggart and a show off, and where's your humility? And that was not my intent, and I didn't even respond. I'm not going to justify to that kind of thing, but I've got a really, really good life. And one of the things we haven't really talked about, Corey, is you're in our relationship. I'd like to hear from your side, not my life story, but hear from you, like your memory, because I'm writing a book right now that's going really well with all these crazy stories in it from my other life. And my hesitation to write the book at first was twofold. One is I don't want to put any names that we're going to get anybody indicted. You know what I'm saying? But most of those people are dead now, and the ones that aren't are not in that life anymore. And then the other reason that I was very reluctant was if I were to write the book as the very truth as I remember it, without embellishing anything, because I've got enough crazy stories where I don't have to try to make any stuff up. In fact, most people's wildest stories from that period of their life that involve me don't even rank my memory. Like if that doesn't make my top 100 list, and it's the wildest thing that ever happened to you. I had a guy tell me, "Oh my God, you remember this? The wildest thing that ever happened." I'm like, "Yeah, I vaguely remember that, but that's nothing." Man.
Right.
So anyway, if I wrote the book and I didn't embellish it, and I wrote it exactly as I remember it, because I was around a lot of things that were very influential to my culture of my generation. And I handed the book to me and I didn't know me, I would think the book was bullshit, dude. I'm like, come on, bro.
Yeah.
This is worse than a bad Hollywood movie. No one could have experienced all of this. You couldn't have been here and there and seen this and done this and that all in one lifetime. I just don't believe it. And so that was really my bigger hesitation, because I wanted people, if I write the book, I want people to believe it. It's my story. I'm not writing a fiction novel. God gave me a lot of really cool gifts, right? And he gives everybody a lot of cool gifts. I'm not unique, right? God gives everybody really cool gifts, but they're different gifts. I have no creative talent whatsoever. I can't sing. I can't play a musical instrument. I'm tone deaf in one ear. I can't write poetry. I can't paint. I'm not good with my hands mechanically. My father and my father's son, they could take apart an engine and put it back together because they like doing it. My wife has to assemble the fucking furniture when it comes in the box here. Like, it's her pink toolkit over there in the garage. Like, it's embarrassing to me because I get frustrated. I'm not into it. I don't enjoy it. I hate it.
Yeah.
Right. I hate even the most minimal mechanical tasks. I'm like, I'll pay somebody to do this shit.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
anyway, he gave me a lot of really cool gifts. Creativity is not one of my. I couldn't make up the kind of life that I've had. So to get around the lack of believability, right? I've got a couple of really good friends that are still alive, that are reformed, that some of the more incredible stories, they're going to write excerpts and tell their version of that story. It'll be very different than my version, right? Because it's from their memory and the eyes that they viewed that story in. But at least it'll add validity to the fact that it actually did happen. You know what I'm saying? So I've talked way too much, Corey. I know it's your show, but talk to me. Tell me just your memory of meeting me and our relationship and how it developed. I don't want to make any assumptions. I have certain memories and opinions about how the relationship started, evolved, grew, changed, all that stuff, but I'll let you roll with it.
Yeah. So I remember, the first conversation, well, I don't know if it's the first conversation. First time we met in person was when we were opening the BJ's here. You asked me what I like to do. And I was in the middle of dealing drugs and drinking and driving, and so I was honest and just said what I do on my off time is I drink. I didn't tell you I was doing drugs, but I told you I drank. And you just said, okay, yeah. And I remember that conversation distinctly because I didn't know anything about you at that point. And as I continued to progress in that business, and I don't even know when or what happened. I don't even know why I left that business. It could be because I got a DUI. Who knows? It's hard to say. Or maybe that's when I got caught with drugs. It's hard to say. No, it wasn't when I got caught with drugs. It was a DUI for sure. I think that's what it was when I left that business. But then So I stopped drinking in 2009. So this was, let's call it 7, 8 years later is when, and you never mentioned anything about, I don't believe you ever mentioned anything about getting sober or being sober during that time. I just don't think because of the relationship, business relationship, it may not have been appropriate. And I could be wrong about that, but I don't remember if that was the case.
Mhm.
And so I had stopped drinking in 2009. Now remind me when you went to prison the last time. What year?
Okay, so that, of course, I love it how because we all remember things from what we remember, right?
Right.
My memory of you not working wasn't the DUI. Wireless had just changed because you had worked your way up from a salesperson to like a district manager.
Oh, yeah,
Wireless
yeah.
had changed.
That's
You
right.
stopped working. You stopped working for me, not because of your drinking or drugging, but because I didn't have that position available anymore because the market had changed and I didn't have the
We were losing the
availability to.
account.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right,
So
right, right. That's right. And that's
it
when you
wasn't.
went on to start your own stuff. That's right.
Well,
That's
that's
right.
when I went to Sandler. Was
Yeah.
at that point in time, right?
Yep.
So I definitely remember because I was always very open with everybody, more so then than I even now because I was Captain Recovery and I wore my recovery on my sleeve, which isn't the most
Mm.
advisable thing to do, is what I've learned. But it's common and it's not. I get it, so I don't really judge people that do what I did. Like I don't drink. Everybody put it this way: everybody knew that I didn't. Certainly, Carrie knew.
Right.
Everybody else that I worked with here knew. Hell, half of them showed up for court for that court case that I took all that probation on.
Right.
And not only that, I saw the signs with you, so I know that I at least said that. Oh, by the way, I've been sober for a long time.
Yeah, but guess what? I didn't hear any of that.
Of course, you didn't
Right.
already, but when you first got sober, you somehow knew to talk to me about it.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah, for
So
sure.
anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
So if let's fast forward from August 12th, 2009, which is the last drink I had was August the 11th, 2009. When did you go back to some
Prison.
2, 3 years, 4 years?
It was 2010 to 2017.
Okay. All right. So what I do just
So
that's
I
right.
do remember in prison. I remember in prison having my big book and us having discussions about the big book while I was in prison,
Yeah,
talking about
so
stuff that was in the book.
yeah, so for sure I'll solidify the fact that we were definitely talking recovery because you stopped talking to everybody. You just went missing. And I thought, I
Yeah.
thought we must be smoking like of all the dudes, I wouldn't think be out smoking
Yeah,
crack.
bunch
But
of
like,
relapse.
I mean, must have because you just
Yeah.
vanished off
That
the face of the
that was
earth for like
logical assumption.
for like
Yeah.
2 years. I didn't hear from you until I
Yeah.
finally heard from you. And then I remember us talking about, so let's just call I was maybe 3 years into the program. And you were so angry. You were so angry with God. And the roles reversed at
Yeah.
that point. And we had a lot of conversations around because you were pissed. Like you just weren't,
Of course
you
I
were,
was.
yeah, of course. And as we continued to talk, you became less pissed because you started helping other people in prison. And then getting
Correct.
out, of course, we've already covered that. We started that business and tried our best to get it off the ground. It just didn't work. And so we've remained the closest of friends ever since that time.
Yeah, we actually started that business when I was on 24/7 house arrest with electronic monitoring.
That's
I
right.
was working from the halfway house when I wasn't even supposed to be on a computer. And there I did start in an internet company. Because hell, the worst thing could happen is send me back. And I was going to max out in a matter of months anyway. So it really didn't matter
Right.
that I broke that rule. Plus, they were telling me you have to pay for this monitoring. And oh, by the way, you can't leave the house. Your sister said she would pay for it. No, my sister said she would pay to get it set up and pay the first month. She didn't have the financial means to
Mm-mm.
pay for all that shit every month. So I had to do what I had to do. And
Yep.
not that, by any way throwing under a bus, because it's I think relevant now to where we both are in recovery, but especially you. I can really remember multiple conversations, even with our friend Tony, that weren't that many years ago. Since I've been home, you know what I'm saying? Where you're saying, yeah, I don't really need that anymore. And first of all, I never really said it directly to you. Like I'm a big book thumper. You know what I'm saying? Like almost everywhere I am, anywhere there's one within reach. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so I never really judge you because the big book mean alcoholic doesn't say anything about not smoking weed. And there's lots of people with medical marijuana cards and that smoke weed, and I consider them 100% sober. I do not think that they need to go pick up a white chip, right? And there are other people that I think that need to go to rehab for marijuana. So
Yeah.
I never really said anything, but it bothered me. And I told you it like, yo,
Sure.
It really bothered me to hear you say, yeah, I don't need that anymore. And that was just scary as fuck to me, because I knew that you were like me. And I knew if I was saying that, because I've been in that place.
Yeah.
I've been in that place. You know, I share all the time. I thought that other forms of service work were service work, right? Which it is doing God's work, right? But it's not the substitute for one alcoholic working with another alcoholic.
That's right.
And I thought that the other forms of service work of volunteering at the youth detention center, which I still do, volunteering at the homeless shelter and bathing the homeless, those are all really good things. Mentoring young kids that are just met off the street. I had one of my big success stories. I had a kid come up to me at the gas station just based on one of the cars that I drive and says, hey, I get asked this all the time. Hey, man, what do you do for a living? Normally I say as little as possible. I started talking to the kid. You could tell he was from the inner city, and judging from the vehicle that was probably on its last leg, you know, I told him I'd start mentoring him, and I'd give him some homework, and we'd meet once a week. And as long as he wasn't wasting my time and doing what I asked him to do, and he's a great success story. He was working his way through college, and he worked as a maintenance guy at a little apartment complex, and now he's got his own concierge repair service that's just for everything from mounting a TV on the wall to a clogged toilet to everything. It's kind of like the general maintenance man. He's the toolkit. I forget his little catchy name that he has on his little van, but whatever you need repaired, because he knows a little bit about everything. Doing apartments, he's repaired dishwashers and washing machines and HVAC units and broken window pane. But anyway, that my memory of that, because I was super, super excited to see you go in the direction that you're in, the path that you're on now. Not that there was anything wrong with the path that you were on.
Except for I was burning my whole goddamn life down.
Well, over and over.
Yeah, well, the 7 years before I came back in was...
Yeah,
because I had everything. I didn't need a...
Yeah, of course. No, more importantly for me, I can't speak for you. I didn't need God, right? Because now I can play God, right? Now I can, now I can do what I want to do, and I can manipulate the job situation, the relationship situation, and just like I said earlier in the podcast, like if I drive the bus, if I think I'm the director, if I think I'm in control of anything, I'm delusional. I'm delusional. If I think I can control even my employees, right? My relationship, my finances, I can't control any of that. All I can do is try to be of maximum service to God and my fellow man. And he takes care of all that stuff. And the beauty of it is, that when I focus on doing his work, he takes care of all that other stuff. But B, focusing on doing that work keeps me out of my head, because I'll stay up at night worrying about the next proposal or the next bid or the next business project, or how I've got to have a plan A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And I do still use strategic thinking and planning. Don't get me wrong, but nothing keeps me up at night, man. I sleep like a baby. I can turn myself off. I don't worry about things there's too many contingencies. Look, one thing's for sure even in the businesses I have now, because I've made this mistake multiple times, both before and after I got sober. I've had businesses that made so much money that I thought, oh my gosh, this is it. I'm going to be a millionaire, and this is the last bus I'll ever need to get on. And nothing lasts forever, bro. Life is about change, and more so now than ever with the ever-changing world of technology. And I feel a little helpless sometimes when, like, my wife asks me to help me with some of her businesses that are based on social media influencers. She's got a lip gloss line, and that does okay, but she's got a really popular organic feminine hygiene line that she built using other influencers. And I don't know the first thing about that business. And when I've even tried to pay for social media ads for some of my other business, it hasn't worked. That clinic that I closed, like, I did testosterone ads, and then I did growth hormone ads, and then I did GLP-1 ads, and I used 2 different companies. And the second company I used had great references from other clinics that they had built their business on. And these guys were so baffled even by it that they were doing it for free for months, because I was saying, well, I'm not paying you anymore. I haven't got any results. I'm like, well, let's do this. Let's change this. We're not going to charge you, because they wanted it to work so they could start charging me again.
Right. Of course.
So, but tell me a little bit about this thing you got going on with getting the people in recovery jobs.
Well, so I use my background in sales and business development and my network in the rooms, and just decided that 17 years ago, I was a convicted felon. 17 years ago, I was trying to get sober, and I couldn't find a job. And so there's countless people in the program that are experiencing that same exact thing. And I've got a pretty good niche of entrepreneurs and business owners, especially in the trades, that I can reach out to and talk with. And the trades need help. And so if you could take a guy that's been to the very bottom and brought himself back up by getting sober, give that guy an opportunity, just like somebody gave me an opportunity, they'll work their ass off for you. Now, I'm not saying it's 100% guaranteed that it's always going to be successful, but if you find the right guy that's working the program, that's doing the things he needs to do, that really values his sobriety, I believe that you're going to have a pretty rock star employee.
I would agree with that. First of all, what a great concept, right? I think knowing you that it's an altruistic motive. You're not doing this because, like, oh, I think this is how I'm going to be the next millionaire.
Right.
My primary motivation of doing this is to be of service to other people. So that alone lets me know it's probably going to work, right?
Yeah.
It's just not a matter of if and a matter of when. I would also agree with what you said about, like we've talked about so much, people that are practicing these principles. I started the conversation earlier, but I'm blessed with this disease. I'm blessed. Yeah. People look at me like, Craig, what do you mean you're blessed that you're an alcoholic and a crackhead, right? Because without that, I would not have these tools in my toolbox, and I would not have this relationship with God. I would not know I could have gone through my whole life very successful and miserable. I've been miserable in and out of sobriety with a bunch of money. Money does not buy you happiness. So don't get me wrong. Takes care of a lot of problems. It's easier to be miserable. I'd rather be miserable and have a bunch of money than be miserable and not have any, because I've been both.
Right.
But it is more money, more problems, right? And money definitely can't buy you happiness. In fact, it can be the detriment. I can't quote the Bible verse, but better for a camel to fit through the eye of a needle than a rich man enter the kingdom of God. That's a paraphrase.
That's actually it. Yeah.
So that kind of scares me. You know what I'm saying? Because but my Father wants me to prosper. He wants me to be able to help other people. I look at my relationship with God, and I don't care whether you call him Jesus Christ, Taya, Buddha, Allah, Muhammad. It just doesn't matter to me.
No.
Right? I'm a Christian and believe Jesus Christ is my Savior. But again, I don't pretend to comprehend an infinite, all-knowing, all-loving God with my little bitty finite brain. So we'll just leave it at
that. Right.
But as it relates to this, somebody that's practicing those principles, they have advantages. They're going to make the better employee, or the better business partner than the person who's not.
Right.
The other side of that coin is you're taking a chance. One of the things I like least about being an entrepreneur nowadays, I used to love it when I found somebody, well, not like you, because you were already like the top salesperson. You were already, you can make your money work. You can sell ice to Eskimo. But taking somebody and bettering their life, you know what I'm saying, and teaching them something has always been very rewarding. And one of the things that I hate the most about what I do now is like, oh my God, the interview process now, no one wants to work. The millennials don't want to work. Everybody wants to make the most amount of money and do the least amount. Then COVID, everybody thinks they can work from home and work in their bathrobe. And then the millennial being on my phone at work and being on social media and dicking around and not really having any ambition. You know what I'm saying? It makes me want to pull my fucking hair out. It's so hard to find good people now. I used to not have this problem, right? And it's the most challenging thing about being a business owner is just because you can even look great on paper, right? And have a good resume and you can knock it out of the ballpark in the interview. But until I see you drive the car, I don't know if you can really drive the car. Right. And I've been doing this a long fucking time. And it's still, you don't know if someone can drive the car. You can make an educated guess. And you're taking a little bit bigger of a chance with someone. I think there's a lot of variables at play. Where are they in their recovery? What kind of job are we talking about? Right. We're talking about a labor job. If these guys need to show up and follow a simple set of instructions, or is he got some responsibility, or is there some bunch of complex thinking that needs to be done and planning that has to be done in his position? I continue to, well, first of all, I always give everybody the benefit of the doubt, and I give more than second chances because God gave me so many. So who am I not to give somebody else second, third? Even I have my wife that I've had people give third and fourth chances. Like, haven't you learned your lesson yet? Like, haven't you been burned you enough? And I'm like, well, who am I to say that they can't change?
Right.
Who am I to make that decision? I'm not. And certainly, you need to use discernment, right? Especially when it comes to a company asset, because you're putting your business at risk, right? But it's the same thing. It's almost like the broken record. You get back what you put out. If I'm putting back helping people in charity, yes, I've been burned. I still get burned. I got burned recently. I got burned twice in the past 2 years with employees, right? But the rewards of the ones that I didn't get burned by were so much greater than the pain of the ones that I did. And you need to use discernment. I'll cut some loose, you know what I'm saying, quicker if I'm seeing the behavior. Look, just because they're sober doesn't mean that they've had the
spiritual experience. That's right.
Yeah, they haven't had the psychic change on how they look at life and how they're dealing with life, how they're handling life.
Yeah, but their sponsor's going to know the answer to that question. You best believe I'm going to speak to them.
Well, in some instances, they'll have a good gauge. I'm such a big book thumper. I didn't plan on saying this, but it's come on my heart now 3 times. Look, to me, it is. I hate cliches like, are they working a program? Because what the fuck does that mean? Everybody's got a different definition. Some people say, oh, yeah, they go to meetings every day. They're working a great program. Well, that's not my definition. Meeting makers make it ain't in my vocabulary.
Nope.
Most people, I've seen people die that way. Again, non-alcoholic. That's great. I distinctly say, where in what step have they completed by my definition of completed? I tell the story all the time. And AA has changed. It was so far away from what that big book is when I got sober that most meetings were garbage. They were treatment centerized. You heard shit that not only was not in the book, but it went polar opposite of what the book says. The book says the opposite. The program is this book right here. You know what I'm saying? This is the program. It says we meet frequently, so we find the solution, find the fellowship, right? The fellowship is the friends in the meetings. The solution is the fucking book, right? The solution is God. 3 parts of the puzzle. The problem, the solution, and the practical program of action, right? That is so where are they in that process? Because I had a really good, healthy relationship with a girl that had been sober 11 years when we started dating, and all her friends gave me shit because I had 6 months, but I was working 10, 11, and 12 at 6 months. You know what I'm saying? The second that we finished chapter 7, I remember it like yesterday. Okay, now go tackle people picking up a white chip and offer to walk them through the book. I'm like, whoa, can't do that. The rules in the meeting say that I can't sponsor anybody till I have a year sober. Well, where in the book does it say you're a sponsor? And where in the book does it says that? Because actually it says the opposite, because Bill Wilson was doing it with no time. The first early years of sobriety, they called old timers people that had 2 years. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? And so, you know, I took that promotion to Charlotte and I was scared to death because the treatment center's like, oh, no major changes. I had 9 months. Don't make any major changes. I'm in a relationship. I'm taking a big, what they would consider a high pressure promotion, where I'm going from an area manager of 4 stores to having 10, you know what I'm saying? And having area and district managers up under me. And, but they said, look, if you go up there and tackle people picking up white chips, a fellowship would grow up around you. And it did. The book study grew up. But man, I never would have stayed sober. I probably had, I don't know, 3.5 months maybe when I walked the first person through the book. And I can't honestly say I know to this day whether they stayed sober, but guess what? I did.
That's
And
right.
I would, but more importantly, I wouldn't have had I not done that. So it would be more engaged to me as like where they are in the program as to what kind of risk that I would want to take on them if I'm the business owner, right?
Right.
But dude, if you tell me somebody's on 10, 11, and 12 and they're practicing them, I'm going to hire that guy over his twin brother that's not.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And again,
100%.
you're going to get burned, but you're going to get burned by other employees
That
too.
doesn't
I mean,
matter. Right.
it's human nature. So you are taking a risk. But again, my experience, if I'm taking the chance and helping other people in need, then I'm going to get rewarded in some way from that. It might not be from that particular employee.
Right.
All right.
So I know we are almost overtime, to be honest.
Okay.
So could you, Nick, I one really appreciate you coming on here. And
Sure.
two, do you mind telling people where they can find Cell Tech if they're looking to
So
find?
when I get asked to do these, at first, thank you. So www.celltechmd.com, right, is the website. We're not really an internet-based company, so it's not going to woo you, or we're, believe it or not, and you know this to be true, of course, you know me. We're not in all a sales organization. I built this, the Atlanta's largest, both square footage and membership base, by one happy patient at a time, sending me another happy patient. There are some things that make us unique, although there are some other good clinics out there. Most of them are very cookie cutter. Everybody gets hit with the same rubber stamp.
Yeah.
Everybody gets hit with the same dose of testosterone, which is insane. You're as unique as your thumbprint. Anybody that looks at you and says, oh, you're this age and this weight, and this is what your testosterone needs to be, they're lying to you. Unless they have a time machine and go back and test you when you were 22, then I'd know exactly where I need you to be. But that could be 700 or it could be 1700.
Right.
And that's quite a difference. But anyway, I've got some of the best hormone doctors on the planet. One in particular I stole from the NFL. What makes him the best is it's an ever-changing science. Even in the business the time I've been in, there's new stuff. Even the methodology on just even testosterone therapy has changed drastically. If he's not with a patient, he's studying. Number one, he's a Georgia Bulldogs fan, as am I. And I called him doing a game one day, and I'm like, you're not watching this game? He's like, nah, man. I'm like, why not? This is a great game. It's a big game. This is going to the SEC championship. And he's like, yeah, I'm into this peptide book. You know what I'm saying? And he's just wired that way. And another testament to him, he treats a lot of other really high profile, famous doctors. And these doctors entrust him with their peptide and hormone therapy. Just like the orthopedic surgeon isn't going to go to the ER and ask to get his heart surgery done. He's going to know who the baddest fucking heart surgeon is on the planet, because that's what he does for a living. So this group of doctors that he has, that he treats, that's growing, that's a really testament to his quality. Certainly we love the John and Jane Does who get great results, and we change their lives because they're going to feel better, and more important, they're going to live longer, they're going to be around for their kids, or be more active in their kids' lives. But these high level doctors, these high big names that you would know if you're, especially if you're in the sports world, that allow us to treat them, that's a really testament to the level of care that we truly practice privatized, individualized wellness with each individual patient. So anyway, www.celltechmd.com. Tell them Nick sent you. I'll make sure you get taken care of. And I've got some other business. I've got a peptide importation company and distribution company. So if you know somebody that's a trainer at the gym that's buys peptides in bulk, I've got a company that we have all SOAs, really high quality products. You know, if you're locally, I'd be telling you, please book some more limo time with Mike's Limousines company. So somebody just crashed one last week, a brand new Escalade ESV. So she's at the long face on that. But you know what, damage wasn't bad, and we're insured. But thanks for asking.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you, and I'll let you know when this drops. All right.
I appreciate you, Corey. Enjoy your Sunday. Enjoy being a guest. Thanks for having me, brother.
Thank you,
Love
brother.
you.
Love you.
See ya.
See ya.